Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the sixth episode of Next Normal series brought to you by International Medical University, IMU, Malaysia's first and most established private medical and health sciences university with close to 30 years of dedicated focus in healthcare education. Today's Next Normal series is a collaboration with IMU Students Ambassadors. The topic is Going Zero Waste in conjunction with World Environment Day 2022. The theme is Only One Earth. With us today is Faustina Ann and her guest, Claire Sanslot, founder of Hive Eco Store. Faustina and Claire will be introducing a set of principles focused on reducing, preventing, and managing waste in a more responsible way. It refers to the practice of producing as little or no waste as possible. Now, without much ado, I will hand over the session to Faustina. Faustina, take it away.
Thanks, Joey. Hi, everyone. My name is Faustina, and I am an IMU Student Ambassador. We, the Student Ambassadors, would like to take this opportunity to celebrate our planet and our environment. So today we will be discussing on the topic of zero waste, a topic that is becoming increasingly important in our conversations on environmental sustainability. A study by WWF stated that Malaysians use around 17 kg of plastic per person, which is actually one of the highest in Asia. Malaysia is also one of the world's biggest importer of plastic waste. These elements pose a number of challenges for the country's waste management. And this is why zero waste is so important, because if this problem persists, it could lead to devastating effects for our community and our planet. Today, we're so glad to have with us Claire Sanslot. Claire is the founder of Malaysia's first zero-waste bulk store, the Hive Eco Store. In 2017, the Hive Eco Store was the recipient of the United Nations Award for their dedication in advocating for a zero-waste lifestyle. Claire was also invited to speak in the National Geographic Summit in 2019. So without further ado, let's welcome Claire. Hi, Claire, how are you doing?
Hi, Faustina. Thank you so much for having me today at IMU.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you with us here too. So Claire, we'll just begin by defining what zero waste is for our audience. So what does zero waste mean to you?
So zero waste can mean many things. What you have to remember is we are all individual and we all live in different kind of households. You can be living by yourself or with a multi-generational family house. So here, zero waste means to create the smallest amount of waste or carbon emission as much as possible for you in your working environment or in your living condition. There is no perfect.
Thank you, Claire. So zero waste is maybe a very unfamiliar concept for many people, yet we know it is so important. We see increasingly nowadays the environmental crisis unfolding around us, whether that's plastic pollution, climate change, the floods that took place recently in Malaysia. So I would just like to know, how does zero waste fit into all of this? What role does zero waste play in this crisis, and why is it important?
So zero waste living here is it's crucial. Climate change, as you mentioned, is the largest threat to humanity, really. Mainly the coming years are going really to be decisive for our future. The way we release carbon emission is within the next 3 years will define the next generation, really. So here, the way we consume, what we can do as activists on a daily basis and how we consume is crucial. So here, obviously, governments and international policies have to be in place. We need to leave carbon emission, all fossil fuels, and we'll need to move to obviously renewable energies. All of this depends on government. We understand that. But as individual, we can do a lot. We can do a tremendous amount as well. Malaysia, as you mentioned, we are really large polluters. We consume a lot of single-use plastic items. What I mean by single-use is, as it says in the word single-use, it's all those products you consume once and then we toss them in a recycling bin. Best case, a lot of our plastic actually in Malaysia cannot even be recycled in takeout and all of this. So as consumer, there is really a lot we can do, and it doesn't have to be difficult. That's what I want to say, because people think, oh my God, it's going to be so hard. It's going to change my life. My life is going to be miserable. It doesn't have to be that way at all. You have to figure it out what works for you. But we do need to start today. We need to consume differently today. We can't live in this, what we're thinking is endless consumerism forever. We already reached the tipping point, to be honest. So now we just need to consume better.
Thanks, Claire, for that. So you mentioned that each individual has their own responsibility and a role to play in consuming better. So now could you give some examples on ways in which we can start living out zero waste?
There are a lot of examples. And again, we are all different. Depends on gender, I guess, your age, if you live with your family, if you live with your parents, or if you live by yourself, or if you live with your children or your grandparents. So it depends on many, many things. But what we have to remember at the end of the day is when we consume, we buy things and we put things in the trash or in a recycling bin. And this, for Malaysian, you have to know. The recycling bin doesn't necessarily mean your items will be recycled properly. A lot of plastic still cannot be recycled. So you really have to do a little bit of education on the numbers. You know, on every plastic you get, there is a number on it, and it tells you what kind of plastic it is made out of. And in Malaysia, we can't recycle all those plastics. So you see, for me, if you have time, I'll share with you my journey. Why did I move to zero waste living more than 10 years ago? I lived in New York for many years before moving to Hong Kong. And I was already very conscious of not necessarily waste, but just I wanted to be a conscious living. I didn't want to create too much carbon emission. For me, carbon emission was very important at the time. And when I moved to Hong Kong, I was consuming a lot, but I was recycling everything I was consuming. So I thought I was doing a good job. And then once I moved to Hong Kong, although we had all the recycling bins and my conscience was clear in a way, which is still the wrong way to approach. Recycling is not the solution. It's part of the solution, but we really need to refuse and reuse before we put in a recycling bin. But I thought I was doing good. That was back in 2010. Just putting all my plastic, and in Hong Kong, you can't drink the tap water. So you need to have filtered water, or bottled water. So I would have the big bottled water, and thinking if I put them in a recycling bin, it's okay, it will be recycled. And I still had this vision, I do not know, naively, that 100% of the recycled plastic that I put in the recycled will be recycled and reused. It's obviously not true in anywhere in the world, and definitely not in Hong Kong. So in Hong Kong at the time, they would ask us to segregate all our waste, aluminium, plastic, and glass. But then the recycling bin, the truck will come, the lorry will come and put everything in the same bin in its lorry. And actually, they were not recycling, they were incinerating. And then once I discovered, once we remove this option for you, once they tell you, actually, there is no more recycling in a way, since they're incinerating, you have to consume differently. And then this is how the whole zero waste started for me, because you remove that option, which was so convenient. And I didn't really have to change the way I consume. I was just recycling everything. You remove that from me. Now, I have to rethink everything. And that's the zero waste. And then once I had my system of rethinking everything I consume, because you have your habits, you go grab your coffee on the way to the office. Once you have all of this, I always had my tumbler. I was not recycling the paper cup. I always had the tumbler. But the lunchbox, everything like that. So once I had my system in place, which took a while, to be honest, and some people go cold turkey, you know, I did cold turkey. It didn't work for me. It made me miserable. I was very upset at the world, at everything. Sorry, it's a long answer. So ultimately I moved back and I went, it's like being an addict with plastic, you know, for me, it's not the cigarette, it was plastic. So then I moved back to step by step, moving the kitchen to zero waste, then the bathroom to zero waste. It was really a process, which I really enjoyed, actually. I really enjoyed rethinking the way I consumed. And it made me go, it's a personal journey here. It made me go to minimalism. And I realized I saved a lot of money too, because I didn't consume, I mean, at all the same way as before. And I realized I don't need much. And it gave me clarity of mind too, which was linked to minimalism. But zero waste doesn't mean, zero waste living doesn't mean minimalist living. But for me, it goes together for my personal lifestyle. Sorry, it's a long answer.
No, no worries. It was a very deep, thank you for sharing a very deep insight into that. So Claire, you mentioned about having your system in place and putting together your own system to start transitioning into zero waste after you realized how recycling is almost like an illusion. So what does that mean? How does creating that system look like, and how can individuals create their own system, one that works for them?
It's a good question, and here it's a process. It's like, again, we are all individuals. So some family, depends where you work, you know, the idea is to keep harmony, because you do not want to create conflicts. It's not worth it. You already explained to your family that here why you want to move to more plastic-free household, why it's important for the planet, for your mental health, because you're obviously getting very, there is a term now for those people who are very eco anxious, I think is the term, or something like that, where a lot of people are really getting nervous and having really a bad feeling of the future of the planet Earth, which is rightly so, to be honest. I personally do not have this feeling, because I'm always a very optimistic person. So I believe everything will ultimately be okay, but we really need all of us to move in that direction and to be more conscious about how we consume. So here, I'm just going to share how it worked for me and what I do on my personal level. I'm obviously female. I'm 46 this year. I have 3 kids now. So the way I consumed 10, 12 years ago, it's actually 12 years ago now, is very different to the way I consume now, because obviously I have 3 kids, a dog, a partner. So the way the house runs is different. But so for people here, I'm just going to mention when I was just without so many kids in my life, so you can relate more. So technically what I did, and I really enjoyed that journey, to be honest, is I started to look at what was in my bin, in my garbage bin, and if I could replace this item by reusable. So it was baby steps. Let's say I started, if we looked at the kitchen, I had, at the time, I still had the coffee pods in my kitchen. My husband and I were pretty addicted. I mean, the convenience, the design, the look, the colors of the pods, everything was so cute. So what we did is we went, because we were 2, so I couldn't force my husband in that journey, and we were pretty addicted to that machine. This is an example, but I think a lot of you will relate to that one. So what I did is I bought, it's called a Bialetti, but it could be anything. It's those Italian coffee pots where you just fill out the bottom, you put the coffee, and then with the steam and the heat, it goes up and it goes through the coffee, and then it's an Italian machine. But it could be a French press. You can get anything. And I bought this. And I kept the 2. I kept the machine, which is a beautiful, again, the design is so gorgeous. And the machine is I had this machine for 10 years already. The engine is unbreakable, Swiss made, you know, like a top engine. So you can't say, hey, when it breaks, I'll move on. It doesn't break. They make sure the engine never breaks. So you keep on buying the parts. It's part of the business model, obviously. So here we had the coffee machine. We had the Italian coffee machine on the side. And I was telling my partner, we just use this on parallel and we see how we can ultimately within 3 months, we get rid of the machine and we just keep the Italian plastic free. The parts we had were in paper packaging, to be honest, and they were made out of aluminum. So at the end of the day, everything is 100% either compostable for the big paper sleeves, which are gorgeous, by the way, and all the parts they have a system where in Hong Kong, you could bring them to the Hong Kong store and they will send them to Switzerland to be recycled. But can you imagine the carbon emission trying to sand in a container, all the parts? But I did this for many years. That's a bit like what we call the greenwashing, and I don't know. So ultimately here in this specific example, for 3 months, we had the Italian coffee pots on the side. And within a month, we were like, we don't need the single pots. We moved right away to the Italian. We finished our pots. We donated the machine to our neighbor. My house was so cluttered. I didn't realize it. You don't realize it, how much things you have in the house. But again, minimalism doesn't have to do with zero waste, but for me, it was linked. So I keep on moving all the time. So I like to have a very light house to move, you know, like just pieces of furniture, very few things to remove as well. So here to go back to the example and moving from, just start to move from one room to another. So the kitchen as well, I started to remove a lot of, because that was part of minimalism for me, a lot of pots. And I realized once I removed, I just kept 2 pans, 2 pots, 1 chopping knife. You know how next to your stove, you always have like a billions of spatula. I removed all of those and I just kept a few. And all of a sudden I was cooking more because all of a sudden it freed my kitchen, right? And it was not so difficult to get pots, pans, and cooking. And I started to really cook, which I'm not someone who cook, but I started to really cook since I couldn't have packaged food anymore, you know, in my journey, because everything was coming in plastic, which I couldn't recycle. For me, all of a sudden, cooking became important because it was my lifestyle as well. And I would bring lunch at the office, which cuts down on a lot of waste too. So here, zero waste is really a gift that keeps on giving to me because it made me go to minimalism, but it made me go to nutrition as well. I learned about nutrition. But see, this is why zero waste living is linked to so many fields. Food is extremely important right now. And our food is so processed that we have so many diseases linked to those processed food, and food waste is so important. I mean, everything is linked. Methane release from all the food, all fuel to make the pesticides used to make all this food, land, to put animals on the land, deforestation, etc., etc. So it's a big field and you learn a lot then on nutrition, which is for your own health. And I learned so much because I was so interested on the environmental impact of the food that I learned so much about nutrition for myself too. But it's a journey. Enjoy it. Learn as much as you can. It's for your own health, mental health, physical health. It's not just for the planet. It's really linked to everything to me.
Thank you, Claire. I think what really struck out to me was when you said zero waste is a gift that keeps giving. Because, we tend to think that zero waste being having it sourced from the environmental arena is more focused towards that area. But like you mentioned just now, and you gave wonderful examples of how it has all these inherent links with physical health, wellness, mental health. So we can just go further to unpack what you said about minimalism. So what are the links between zero waste and minimalism, and how would that look like, and how do we as students start if we want to?
Right. So actually, again, a lot of people who are trying their uttermost to believe zero waste, to be living zero waste, might not necessarily be minimalist, but it's just in my case, I am. And I'm minimalist for mental health as well. But for some people, it doesn't have to be. Some people actually, for their mental health, they need to have a lot of things around them. Totally fine. Again, we are all different. I was in my 20s in New York City. I lived in Manhattan for 10 years. It was a time of Sex and the City, which was huge at the time. Huge. It was all the consumerism, all the fashion, the accessories of Sex and the City. You can imagine you put a young female in that environment. And in America, everything in the USA, everything is on sale and sale and sale. So you put a 19-year-old in that environment, it's insane. I went banana, of course, for 10 years living in that city at that specific time. Consumerism was everything. It was our lifestyle. It was the way we lived. So when I realized again, no more recycling option, and I moved slowly to minimalism, my wardrobe, and that's again a gift that keeps on giving. I changed totally my wardrobe. That took me a few years though. To me, that journey from having the latest, fashion designers, whatever, shoes, it took me a few years to ultimately have a very, I don't have a capsule wardrobe. People talk a lot. This is a very common term. It's not me. I had it at a point, but it was not my comfort zone. But I have a very small wardrobe, and I love every piece I have in my wardrobe. It's all quality. I have some fun stuff that are not necessarily quality, but I just wear them. Everything in my wardrobe has been worn multiple, if not hundreds of times. I try to buy, which is something I think lacks in KL, but more and more is developing, secondhand. Like before, I could buy all my secondhand clothes in Hong Kong because you had few stores where it was the clothes that I liked, on all the stores. So it was the brands I liked, it was the fabric I liked. In KL, I find it doesn't exist. Like high-end or upper middle class kind of store for secondhand clothes, those did not exist. But now, and for the students listening to me, this is so fun. Clothes swapping or selling your clothes, you put some cool music, you have all your friends, you sell all your clothes for a ridiculous amount, 5, 10, 15, 20 ringgits, whatever are the pieces. And you have all the friends rolling around with their booth, their table, or whatever it is, the clothes on. You have cool food, you put your cool music behind, you have a great time, and you swap, you buy, you sell, but all from each other. And those are more and more, it's growing in KL and in Malaysia. It should be all the time because fast fashion, as we all know, is really, really, really destructive to the planet. And it's destructive for our mental health, really. We can't chase fashion all the time. But it's something that, to me, I enjoyed now a lot. The wardrobe, secondhand, a gift. On top of it, when you buy secondhand, you appreciate your pieces. But you can always put them back for sale. And it doesn't, you're not holding on to things so much because the value is not like, you spend so much money on it. So, because it's things at the end of the day, it doesn't quite matter.
That sounds really fun and exciting, something that, like, I myself hearing this, I want to get into. And I'm pretty sure students hearing this also feel so inspired by those fun and exciting words. And yeah, like you said, practicing zero waste does not have to be, as much as it sounds daunting, it does not have to be. It can be fun, like how you've described so wonderfully. So my other question would be, to those who may find it hard to transition, or to those who've already started, what kind of challenges can they expect in their zero waste journey, and how do they counter that?
It can be a frustrating journey because, for instance, like sometimes, I like to go in different islands in Malaysia, and there is not enough water, right? We're bringing water with us in the car, but then it's filtered water. We have a wonderful filter at home, but then you're on those remote islands, which is like paradise on earth. My God, such a shame. You need to buy the plastic bottles because you can't drink tap water, right? So you do, and you know it won't be recycled properly, and you know, so it's a constant dilemma. Malaysia is beautiful, pristine beach to go snorkeling or discover the turtles. And then in those places, you do need to drink plastic bottled water because there is no other way to get clean water, drinking water. So it's a conflict all the time. This you can't control. Things you can't control, you have to let go. Otherwise, you're going to have all this negative energy and negative feelings. What you can control at home in your environment, which again is controllable, this you have to do your uttermost to try to remove the single-use plastic. I'm going to go for another example, which is not related to zero waste, to single-use plastic. Two examples, actually. It's moving to a plant-based diet. I think we've all known now that the number one culprit on release of carbon emission is actually beef production. So we really need to lower, if we can't go plant-based. I'm a flexitarian. I'm not a vegan or vegetarian. I still from time to time would eat some cheese, and from time to time, if there is, depends where, it's usually outside of my house and we are with friends and there is a barbecue, I might go for some chicken there or whatever. And definitely fish. I eat fish. But the idea is to really, really, really reduce our animal product intake. So, and anything related to beef mainly. So this, and again, it's a journey it's a journey again that keeps on giving, because we all know that actually red meat is really bad for you. So we definitely need to reduce our beef consumption. For me at home, I still order some compound organic chicken from the farms around us in KL for my children, because again, we're flexitarian. So I don't want the kids to go vegan yet. They can make this journey when they are older. Another thing that we can do, and it's not again linked to single-use plastic. So on top of moving to a more plant-based diet, is starting to compost and grow food at home. Composting has a lot of fantastic mental health effects as well on us. And starting to, obviously, gardening, we all know that it's extremely good for your mental health. It's very soothing and rewarding, and we're having our personal time. So starting to compost, mainly I find it easy in Malaysia to compost because we have space. I know for the students it's a bit more complex, but you can ask your university to have a composting system. Composting is extremely, extremely important. It sounds really like trivial. It is not. What you have to know is when you put food waste in a plastic bag that goes in a landfill, it really creates a time bomb, because this will never decompose. And the fruits, the peels, all of this will turn into methane. And methane is 80 times worse than carbon dioxide. So it's extremely bad. And it's really part of climate change is really due to methane as well release. So it's really, really bad. And we can do something about it. We can just compost it and make beautiful fertilizer. So it's a shame. And again, see, it gives us here, the OS is going to give me beautiful fertilizer to grow my own food. Saying that, I do not grow food at home. We don't compost at home. I live next to the beautiful place which is called Kebun Bangsa. We drop our compost at Kebun Bangsa. My kids love the animals there. They love. I love everything in Kebun Bangsa. My dog loves to go in the pond. Paradise on earth. But we have a lot of communities now, community garden all over KL, and I'm guessing in our big cities like Johor and Penang, we must have more and more community gardens popping up from citizens saying enough is enough. We need to have food safety, not necessarily for environmental, they're doing it for their mental health and their own physical health, growing their own organic food.
Thank you, Claire, for sharing that. I think what you just said really consolidates the fact that zero waste has all these different connections to all these different aspects and facets of life. So just previously about what we're talking about in terms of sustainable fashion and the fashion trends, do you have any other examples of how, like for youths, for students who want to maintain that style and fun in life, but at the same time go green, go sustainable? Can you give any other examples of how this can be done?
Well, for me, the clothes swaps or the selling between each other and having this gathering are the number one priority. That will change everything, because when I looked at my wardrobe, my shoes even are secondhand that I'm wearing today. Shoes, top, and pants are secondhand, except my watch that I'm wearing and my underwear. Oh, my underwear, because I'm having my period, sorry, is actually the Hive period underwear. So everybody who's female here have as well to go zero waste and save a lot of money. Go and anywhere, but the Hive sells it as well. The menstrual cup, try the menstrual cup, try the washable sanitary pads, try the period underwear. The period underwear is our latest baby, was released last year. I'm wearing it today. Love it. I couldn't believe it. 3 layers, total absorption. The freedom it gives, unbelievable. And of course, zero waste, you just wash it and reuse it. So plenty of small options now on how to remove the single-use plastic in your life. But for the female who love fashion, I would say we need more stores with curator, like someone who loves fashion and manages the stores and knows what to do with the top and the bottom and knows when the customers are coming in, oh, I have this piece for you and this piece for you. Look at them. The products are that person will make a markup of 30% maybe on the clothes, but we still gain, as customers, it's still cheaper. And plus you have the service, you don't have the smell, everything is like well organized. I love the stores. We need more stores like that in KL.
Thank you, Claire. So earlier we were talking about, the challenges that one can encounter, and you mentioned just do your best. Like there are some times we will be in circumstances where we will have to consume some plastic or some single-use items. So like you said, and that's for our mental health, so we don't feel that negative energy. And so that idea of trying our best is important. And so how do we communicate this to those who may not share that same idea, who feel like either it's all in or all out?
As you know, education has to be positive. So you can't go in the negative here, and you have to lead by example. When people will see you mentally happy, economically you're telling them you're saving money, all those kind of things, they will realize that that might be interesting to see what is this lifestyle, like it does not have to be necessarily environmental here, because sometimes people are like, oh, boring, or she's annoying, she's making me feel bad. But you can just be an inspiration as well. It has to be inspirational, I think, now, because we all know climate change is really bad and it's happening. So here you have to show people in a really positive way, and that's what we try to do at the Hive. It's always very positive. It's like, don't worry, we can still do something about it. Zero waste is not to make your life more complicated. It's not. It's actually going to make your life. People think, your life must be so difficult. And I'm like, no, I have 3 kids. I have a really demanding career. But my house and the way we consume and we live is so much easier now, because I don't have to buy so many things for my kids. Everything is secondhand, So, and my kids know that certain things are really bad for the planet. I'm starting to have teenage girls, so it's kind of starting to be a bit difficult on the fashion front. And they were telling me, oh, mommy, I want to buy, and now they buy online. This is something I would never buy clothes online. I'm still very old fashioned. I need to try. And for them, they don't need to try. They want to buy online because their friends are buying online. I have 3 daughters, by the way. But then I talk to them, not necessarily, I don't tell them the environmental impact because they know. But I tell them, to make clothes that cheap, someone had to pay. It's the planet and definitely the people. And it's usually female who work in those factories. They are really working 12 hours a day, 6 days, if not 7 days a week. It's modern slavery to make you what? Clothes for that many ringgits with poor quality. Is that really what you want to wear? And then when they're like, oh, no, mommy. So I would try to get those clothes, whatever they want, secondhand, from friends who have older kids and who are super fashionable. So I would buy when they outgrow the clothes, I just get them from them. So that's all the old tricks. And it saves me a lot of money. So again, it's a gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, I think that's something that the audience will really take away from this conversation. So Claire, you mentioned that it's always good to spread a positive, inspirational, uplifting message to encourage those around us to practice zero waste. So can you give us some examples on how we can create this message, as well as set a positive example that people can follow, at the same time keeping in mind that because we have the environmental urgency, we need to get more people to join us in this movement?
So here, I think, again, you have to lead by example. So here in your case, because you are the students, so at IMU, what you can start to organize, it's events, but not, education is very important, but not just education. I think you guys are students, so you're well educated, so you know about climate change. The amount of e-waste we consume every year, so you can have e-waste, not e-waste, don't call it e-waste swap, but you can have swap, like we were talking about fashion, tech, tech products, camera, it could be anything, but start to sell and buy from others. All those accessories, cables, my God, the amount of cables. And because they're so cheap, you think like, oh, I'm just going to get it from the store because it's so cheap, or online because it's so cheap. But those are like, yes, it is cheap, but the amount of waste is created. And when you swap it or when you sell it to others, it's still cheaper. So you still save money here. So, at school, because you already have your community, it's easy, I find it. But you have to make it fun. Not necessarily on the subject of climate change, which can be a bit too heavy for some people, and they don't want to go. It's too hard for them. And again, climate change anxiety is very much a subject. So you have to make it fun, and they need to gain something from it.
Thank you, Claire, for sharing that. That's all the questions that we have from our end. But before we close, would you like to share anything? What is that one important message that you'd like our audience to take away from this talk?
So what you have to learn is, what you have to take away from this talk would be, we need to act immediately. So that is the urgency here. Look at what is in your garbage, look at what is in your closets, your wardrobes, see what you can do and what will bring you happiness. You obviously have too much in your garbage and too much in your wardrobe. I already know that. I don't need to see it. How to change that to make you happier, to eat better, to have more mental health as well, and to be in a better place, not always chasing the latest tech fashion products, move away from that kind of environment, and to a more mindfulness, you have to be more conscious consuming and conscious living, because obviously teenagers and young adults, depression is very severe nowadays. So it's something, mental health is extremely important. So, and I really promise you, most likely it will help you in your mental health journey to move to that journey of letting go of those things, and being with the community, working together to make a better planet, finding, as students, finding solutions together, again, organizing those events which are fun, exchange, trade, make it community centric. I would start there.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to sit here with us today and share your really deep and interesting insight into today's topic. We, the student ambassadors, would like to thank everyone watching and would like to wish them a happy World Environmental Day. Do remember that taking care of the environment is our personal responsibility. Every individual has a role to play in taking care of our planet for ourselves and for the future. And remember the words of Claire, zero waste is a gift that keeps giving. So let's start acting now, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Bye, Faustina.
Thank you so much, Faustina and Claire. And I think after this session, we all should take a good look at our wardrobe. So that is the way to start. So thank you again so much, Claire, for sharing with us your stories and all the examples to help our audience moving closer to living a life with zero waste. We all could start somewhere, right? So, and thank you, Faustina, and everyone at the IMU Students Ambassadors on these collaborations. Thank you so much for your hard work. And I believe all of us, every one of us, has a role to play, like Faustina said, and let us cherish our planet Earth and do our bit for our environment. Live lightly, refuse, reduce, and reuse. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So thanks for watching, and we hope to see you in our next episode soon. Have a good day and stay safe.